Okay, so here's how I normally describe the process of doing an environmental inventory for a student. When you're thinking about environmental inventories and curriculum planning in general, you really want to think about the student's whole life. This is much different than you might think about curriculum planning for other kinds of students because we want to make sure that our skills that we're teaching are going to be useful in students' current and future environments. So we're going to start by thinking about their life, okay? And within their life, we want to find out what are all of the different environments that they are currently accessing, okay? So there's a few, right? Let's make up a student. So let's say the student, of course, he goes to school. He also goes to his house. He probably also goes to grandma's house. He goes to the Y for like after school, let's say. Maybe he goes to the playground with his friends or in his neighborhood, okay? Okay, so what we want to do is we want to talk to the student and talk to their family and figure out what are all of those places that that student goes throughout their week, day, month, like all of different places that they go. And that's how we're going to figure out what are the most important skills that we need to teach the student. If we want to make sure that we're teaching skills that are important in students' current and future environments, we need to make sure that we know what all of those environments are. Okay, so let's pick one of these environments. Let's say we're going to look at school. Okay, and in school has I'll say in each environment there are sub-environments. So think about your home. You might have in your home a kitchen, a living room, a dining room, a bathroom, a basement. So let's think about what the sub-environments might be for the student in school. So let's just make this up. Let's say he takes the bus. Let's say he goes to different classes, like he goes to math, and he goes to English language arts, and he goes to PE, etc. You could list all of those down. He has to go through the hallway. He has to go to the cafeteria. He might go to recess. You kind of list out all of the different sub-environments within an environment that you want to that your student might be accessing. So for these sub-environments, now we're going to pick one. Let's pick the cafeteria, okay? So we're going to go with the cafeteria. And in that sub-environment, there are activities. So what are some activities that students might do in the cafeteria? I have my daughter here. She's 10. What are some activities that you do in the cafeteria?
You eat food.
You eat food. What else?
Talk to people.
Talk to people. What else? You have to go through the line?
Yeah.
And get your food? So let's say go through the line. Do you have to enter a PIN number when you get your food?
Not in my school, but
Oh, you just go straight through.
you just go straight.
You just go straight through. You just say thank you, right?
Right.
Okay. So you might have to say thank you to the person working in the cafeteria. Then you have to find a seat, right? And what do you do after lunch?
You have to line up.
You have to line up. Would you just leave your food on the table?
You have to throw it all out.
You have to throw it all out,
And you have to collect your stuff, and then you have to line up.
get stuff, and you have to line up, and then you go to recess?
Yeah.
You go to recess before, though, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay. But you have to line up. All right. So these are all of the different activities that a certain 10-year-old might engage in the cafeteria. So now we've identified the activities. Now what we're going to do is we're going to watch the student one day. We're going to sit there in the cafeteria and we're going to be like an anthropologist. We're going to be like Jane Goodall, watching the student engage in all of these activities, and we're going to identify of these activities, where does he need an adaptation or an accommodation, and where does he need to learn skills, and where does maybe he's independent. So if we're watching him go through the cafeteria line, let's say he's having trouble getting the tray off of whatever countertop it might be on, so I'm going to think, okay, it looks like he had trouble with that step is getting his tray. Should we teach him a skill, like teaching him to ask for help? Should we design something so that it's easier for him to get his tray? I have some choices here. I can decide whether I want to teach a skill, or I can decide if I want to create an accommodation for the student. So as he goes through the line, maybe he's, telling the person, what he wants to eat, and he's doing pretty well with that. He says thank you to the cafeteria worker, and now he's got to find a place to eat. Let's say he uses a wheelchair. He's going to have to find a spot at a table that accommodates his wheelchair. So maybe that's a skill that I want to teach him, because you know what? That's probably something he's going to have to do for the rest of his life, is find places where his wheelchairs can be, right? So I decide that's a high priority skill. I'm going to use this opportunity to teach him, and we'll use systematic instruction to teach him how to find a seat. And we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. So I continue watching him. He's eating. He does need some accommodations to eat. Let's say he needs an adapted spoon, and maybe he needs an adapted plate or some Dyson that keeps his materials from moving around too much on his tray. And he might need some adaptations, maybe to throw his food out, and then let's say lining up. Now here's another example of a situation that he's probably going to be in a lot, right? I mean, think of all the places in your life where you have to line up. And I'm going to see, how does he do with this? Is he independent, or does he need some instruction on this important skill? Same thing with getting his belongings, getting all of his stuff, that's something that's going to be pretty important. How does he do with that? Does he need reminders? Does he need maybe a checklist? How does he do physically with managing it? Is he remembering everything that he needs to remember? So these are the things that I'm going to kind of watch for, and that's how I choose what I want to teach. So to recap, it's almost like an upside down triangle. So we have the student's life, okay? We have all of their environments. Within each environment, we have sub-environments. Within the sub-environments, we have activities. And when we watch the student engage in those activities, we can figure out what skills they might need to learn. And that is an environmental inventory.